Welcome to the Magic on the Inside podcast by the Sisters Enchanted, where we chat magic, hot topics, personal development, and good old-fashioned life. Brew up something delicious and sit with us for a spell. We are pulling out another clip for you. This one is of our astrology class where we talk about astrology, health, wealth, and relationships. This was a good one. We had so much fun teaching it the other day. And in this clip, we are pulling out some information on relationships for you to share from the class that we taught. Now, I will say, and we have another podcast episode on this. We actually have two, one with Anna and her partner, her husband, Chad, and one with me and my husband, Kevin, where we talk about how astrology has changed our view of our relationships, how it's informed our ability to communicate with one another. And I do credit astrology with definitely helping my marriage along, because my husband and I have struggled greatly with communication, and understanding communication in astrology and our rising signs has been absolutely game-changing for me. So listen to this clip. This is from a web class that we taught this past weekend. We taught it live, and this is just a portion of that. So check that out and enjoy. All right, so let's look at relationships. So just like health, wealth, there are a multitude of things that you can look at. There's not just one thing. With relationships today, we are going to speak to Mercury and the seventh house. We're going to look at Mercury and the seventh. My notes have Mercury, and Anna went above and beyond and added the seventh house as well. So Mercury, we all know Mercury. You've probably heard of Mercury retrograde.
I added the seventh house because if people are looking, generally speaking, for relationship information, it is the seventh house. But how important communication is in your ability to navigate relationships is huge. And I think oftentimes underlooked. And I think that's what Sara also thought when going into this. So I think it's really important to kind of look at both. Yeah. There's a lot of things you can look at in relationships, like a lot. This is very just...
Yeah. All of this, there's so many things. Yes. So like I have a question right now with Jupiter and Scorpios. It's why I'm a pessimist. No, maybe not. Your whole chart paints a big picture of you. And all of the pieces put together is really what helps you to read a chart. All right. So Mercury and communication. You've probably heard of Mercury. You've heard of it going retrograde and messing up everyone's day. Mercury, while Jupiter is like long-term travel, long distance travel, Jupiter is short. It's short. Mercury short. It's short trips. It's right now. It's the communication happening in this moment. So let's talk a little bit. You want to hit Mercury first?
So Mercury, I love the planet Mercury. If only it wasn't for all of my Scorpio energy in my chart, my house would be ruled, or my chart would be ruled by Mercury. Alas, Pluto it is. But I love Mercury. Awesome Mercury. Mythologically speaking, we can look at the god known as Hermes and all the things that go with him. He's a communicator, a psychopomp, a communicator between the living and the dead, being able to travel through and talk to all kinds of people on all different planes. And also very tricky and a little bit sometimes chaotic, trying to... it's like the game telephone where you whisper in somebody's ear and you've got to get it around and see if you have the same message at the end. Hermes and Mercury in the Roman name, in its essence, is kind of like that, always spreading tidbits and changing the story as they go, just so that, the right story hits the right person at the right time, so that Mercury always wins. So Mercury is quick, like Sara said, travel, it's communication, it's like regular communication. And that's why when Mercury goes retrograde, we all get a little bit panicky. Mercury doesn't actually retrograde, like it doesn't actually physically move backwards. It appears to move backwards, but it can show barriers. It can show that kind of chaotic comedic side of Mercury where things aren't as clear as they were supposed to be. So when you're looking at Mercury in your chart, you're looking at your communication style. You're looking at how you're able to talk to people.
Yeah. So Mercury, when it comes to relationships, where your Mercury is, how you communicate around, how you communicate your emotions, how you communicate in the day-to-day grind, how you communicate. It's going to probably speak a lot to your relationships because it's going to indicate how you receive communication in the day-to-day and how you deliver communication in the day-to-day. All right. should we talk about, well, Mercury in air signs.
Mm-hmm.
What can we look at there?
Well, when you're looking at Mercury in air signs, well, the air signs tend to have big ideas that, Gemini and Mercury, they go hand in hand. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini as well as Virgo. So you have this, Gemini is very, very Mercury-esque in its energy. Air signs will communicate a lot. And depending on what kind of sign you are, it'll talk to how much you communicate, how much back and forth you give when you communicate, how much space you give for other people to communicate back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So air signs and Mercury, depending on what air sign you are, it can lean towards talking too much, not listening enough, having no room for other people's opinions, or even sometimes being so optimistic or so open to communication that you go unheard in general and don't even realize it. So air signs tend to sometimes over communicate or forget that there's another side to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you whip us through the earth, air, or earth, fire, water real quick?
So communication in water signs would be somebody that probably wears their emotions on their sleeves, talks quickly about their emotions, maybe even says too much sometimes and can't take it back because they're just letting their cup run over with their words. So water signs might be a little bit more loose with their words in a way that is very emotionally raw. And Shannon, I see, what about Libra? Libra is the one that might give so much space for other people when I was talking about air signs that they might forget that they're not being heard until it's kind of too late. As in earth signs, communication is typically a little bit slower, more productive, maybe less emotional, and more like, if I need you to emotionally take care of me, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, like a checklist. I need you to buy me this, clean this room, and do this task. And then we can talk about if I'm ready to talk. So earth signs and their communication style when it comes to relationships might be a little bit more of a precisionist about it. I'm trying to land on a word. I can't think of what it is, but they're going to be
precise
about it. Yes. And not emotional. It's going to be more almost contractual. And fire in Mercury, this might be somebody who, when they're trying to communicate in a relationship, their feelings and needs, it might become defensive and might become loud or, again, just like not overflowing, but like burning down the conversation with all of their words because they have so much to say that it becomes like I might slam the door on my way out and hear no more of the conversation because I just let you have it in its entirety. And then they might need to calm down and cool off before coming back into the conversation.
So for anybody looking for like basics, even below, like this is just an overview of things to think about. We will, when I send this replay out, the birth chart basics class will be with it, which will give you like a walkthrough of the signs, the houses, all that good stuff. I'll got your back. All right. So the 7th house, this is another piece of relationships.
Yes, and it is your relationships on like a contractual level. So it's your marital relationships when you actually like sign a marriage certificate. It can also be your relationships contractually in business, which is still a really important relationship to have because those kind of relationships need to be really healthy in order for them to thrive. If you're looking for kind of day-to-day relationships like dating, we're looking more like 5th house. But if you're looking for like long-standing, what my relationships will look like what do I need to thrive when like I have that long-standing relationship?
That's a responsibility.
It's a responsibility to somebody else. Like I said earlier, that 7th house is in the part of our chart that connects us to other people. So it's not just about you in that house. It's also how you might make space for other people and how you'll need to be treated by the person that you allow in that space. So it's no longer an independent house anymore. It's what you need from another person and like what you need from yourself to thrive in that long-standing relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's always ruled by Libra and that balance between two people, an imbalanced scale. It's that balance.
Yeah. And this is why I think it's so fascinating to learn astrology, because I'll show you my chart again quickly, but so I'm going to say not, quote unquote, not having anything in a sign. We always have something there because there's the energy that is ruling it based on where the constellations were and the planets when you were born. And so like a good example, and we can look at my chart again, but my 7th house of contracts is empty. And my 10th house of career is empty, yet I own a business. So I'm in lots of contractual relationships. I'm married, got 2 kids, so those things being quote unquote empty, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because when you look at my chart, you can see where all of that lands somewhere else.
So like me too, I have the 7th house appearing to be empty. I have a Taurus on that cusp. I can also go even deeper for those of you who are a little bit familiar with astrology. I know, because I practice the astrology things, that Taurus is ruled by Venus, and I might go look at Venus in my chart for a deeper understanding of what I might need to nourish those relationships. And I might take note on that. I might look deeper into that. So just because there's nothing there doesn't mean that there's nothing for you. Like I said, I have nothing in my 7th house. I'm married, I have children. But I know, because Taurus is on that cusp, that I want my relationships to be really cozy, maybe almost too comfortable cozy. Maybe if I'm mad at you, you should probably buy me treats and maybe a new throw pillow, and maybe watch a really bad 90s film with me, because I want to be comforted by things that I love. And if I'm in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to do those things, so like you might say that like gift buying for me is my love language. So if I'm finding somebody that isn't going to be capable of that, then I might not feel nurtured in that relationship.
So for me, when we look at my chart,
and I got all that for having nothing in that house.
Yes, exactly. So I have Mercury in Sagittarius. It's super early on in Sagittarius. So that fire it's fire. It's going to move. So yeah, my communication can be fiery.
Yes.
Anna will tell you my communication can be fiery. I can definitely, my words they are my weapon of choice if I'm not.
They're so good. It's so scary.
And so we see that here, like, I can also spin a tale really well. And then when it comes to communication, I am expansive in my communication though. So we can see that with Mercury. And then looking at my 7th house, which is again, quote unquote, empty. It is Capricorn energy, which makes a lot of sense.
So many thoughts
around contractual relationships and how I want to be the CEO of contractual relationships. Yes. So even though there's quote unquote, I keep saying, I hate when people say that, quote unquote, air quotes. Yeah, I'm doing it. Even though
sometimes you just have to insert air quotes.
So even though for me, that there is not like a planet, not an asteroid of significance there, the fact that it's Capricorn energy speaks a lot to my life. Like there is not an area of my life. There is literally not an area of my life that I am not the CEO of. Right. Not an area.
And also that, but for instance, because Capricorn, we have that idea of the sea goat. You're looking at me with eyes of worry. Like I'm
eyes of wonder.
Wonder? Was it wonder? I was going to say, am I going to say something that's going to
no, it's
rock up your astrological world?
Nope, it's eyes of wonder.
The thing is that the sea goat, the base, like the underlying thing of Capricorn is that it works really, 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 really hard all of its life. And when it gets to be like a little bit older and it's navigated and conquered most of life, then it kind of settles into being able to have fun. And for Sara too, Sara might have to be the CEO for many years. And then when her later on down the line is when her relationship might become a lot of fun again, because she has time and space, because she made the room. She worked hard so that when she becomes a certain age, she can take a deep breath and say, I worked so hard. Now I don't have to. And now I'm on the top of the mountain and I can take a deep cleansing breath of air, and now I can play again.
And I married a Capricorn rising.
And you did marry a Capricorn
in
rising.
In my 7th house of relationships,
yes.
I'm married to a Capricorn rising.
So you can see, so too, like your relationships will change over time. So Sara's relationship may change a lot in 20 years from now, because Sarah's need in that relationship will change. Her outlook on that relationship will change. She might not feel like the constriction of Saturn, which kind of goes in with that Capricorn energy. She's going to feel more spacious again later on. And then she might get a new breath of fresh air in her relationship later on down the road because of thus Capricorn energy.
Yeah. So when you're looking at astrology, the class today, what we're talking about, health, wealth, and relationships, we wanted to bring you this information for some things to look out for. So even if you're not an astrologer, even if this all went over your head, because you're like, I don't know, what's a house even? Believe me, I was the same way when I started learning astrology. But when you do start to hear it, when you start to listen in maybe on some of our older podcast episodes, or when we talk about this, or if you watch our birth chart basics class, which I will definitely, it'll be on the same page as this when we send out the replay for you.
And definitely the Pi podcast.
Yeah, listen to our Pi podcast. It helps out a lot, I think. But a lot of people were like, I did not understand it until I listened to that podcast, and now I understand it. Was really good.
I thought Sara was crazy.
I know.
And then she wasn't.
My Sag communication worked well for me that day.
It was very expansive.
But what I want you to start considering is where you can, when you look at it yourself, and start thinking about this, because health, wealth, and relationships, let's be honest, that's most of what takes up our mind space. You know, why don't I feel well? Why am I so tired and sluggish? Well, let's look at your sixth house and service, because often, particularly if you are a person who's the nurturer in your life, you are going to run yourself into the ground being of service to others. And let's see what's going on there. And you can understand that about yourself more. For me, over time, I learned when I am of so much service, I don't take care of myself. I will overeat. I will kill my digestive system and be very sick from it. And that's a lesson I had to learn. And it's written right there, though, in my blueprint. If only I would listen to it.
I just also thought of something, again, really funny. Every time we talk about Sara's astrology chart, we pull back another layer. And we're just talking about your seventh house and how you married a Capricorn rising. Mm-hmm. Well, in your contractual relationships, would you say that I'm kind of a contractual relationship because we work together?
Yes.
I'm a Capricorn moon. And when you need structure or support, I support you emotionally in that contractual relationship.
True. That's accurate.
And so you thrive off of that Capricorn energy as you're still trying to climb your mountain.
And your Virgo-ness holds down my Sagittarius air balloon.
Yes, because I'm a Virgo and it's in her.
You are the rope that holds me down in a good way.
I always think of Sara as like this like glowing moon, and I'm like somebody with a rope like trying to like hold it down. And like, no. Stay here.
So we can look at relationships also, just where other people are. One of my favorite things to look at in terms of relationships is my kids and their birth charts with mine. So this is a little bit of a tangent. It's not what we were going to talk about, but an example of this, I have Pluto and Mars in Scorpio in my house of children and families, which can lend to frustration easily. And my son, he's almost 4. He is a 12th house Scorpio moon. So his emotions can come out of nowhere, and then he's very embarrassed because people saw his emotions, so then he's more emotional. And then me and my Pluto and Mars and Scorpio is just like, stop it, child.
So really, and he should spend a lot of time at my house with my 2 Scorpio boys in my 12th house.
He totally
Pluto
should.
And Scorpio.
Yes.
And my Scorpio.
And
so stay with me.
But that's such a good thing to know about our relationship, right? And when I'm aware of that, then I know, I'm like, okay, what steps can I take? How can I, like, when I see this coming, what's the plan? Like, what's my plan of action? So that we don't find ourselves in this emotional, like, tailspin nonsense. But when we look at relationships, we can look at all that, like who in your life is touching where. We've even looked at the birth chart of the sisters Enchanted, the date that I registered us as a business, and the people who work here, to see like where we all fit into the birth chart. It's such a fascinating topic. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for listening in on that clip. I hope that you found something informative, learned something new, or thought about something in a new way, something to take away and help your daily life, and use astrology to help with your communication and understand how you communicate and how those around you might communicate and how you can communicate better together. If you want to know more, Be sure to join us in Expedition Astrology. The doors are closing. The class is getting a makeover, and when we open those doors again, it's going to be fresh and better than ever. And as a result, this is the last time to get in at the current tuition rate. So check it out, thesistersenchanted.com/Expedition Astrology. We'd love to have you. Let us know if we can answer any questions. And until next time, though, I hope that you have an enchanted rest of your day ahead. Thanks for listening in. Bye.